The television in prison will get you put in a casket. That's right, a pine box. You know what a pine box smells like? Pine soil. Yeah, you saw the movie. You know the phrase. You want to be in a pine box that smells like pine soil? Well, mess with that television in prison, and that's exactly where you're going to end up. I done seen many dudes mess with the TV, and it did not end well. You want your 6 best friends to be carrying you to a hole in the ground where the worms are eventually going to chew you up, or the grave digger's going to dig you back up when you ain't nothing but bones and toss you in a bag and put you in there with somebody you don't know because your mama couldn't afford nothing because you was indigent and you want to mess with that television when them dudes were trying to watch BET raps. You know what I mean? Or The Young and the Restless. Man, don't put your fingers, your little grubby fingers on that TV remote in prison. You know you ain't no soldier. You ain't no head buster. That's why I stayed out the TV room. I didn't have grandeur illusions that I was going to be the biggest dude messing around with that television. But I did make a mistake one time and got attached to the television. And the person I got into it with was my cellie. That's right, my cellie. And I didn't think about the fact, like the dudes who I seen get banged up behind that television, and some of them who didn't make it back home to their mamas because they got jigged and shanked. Yeah, mamas crying with a tissue in her nose, head in the arms and chest of a priest that you don't even know because you ain't never went to church in the first place. But you want to mess with that television in prison. Man, I'm about to hit you with some reality. Dragon Ball Z. That's the reality I'm going to hit you with. I got into Dragon Ball Z while I was in prison, in the parish jail. I didn't put it on Dragon Ball Z. Just so happened, all the dudes on the tier I was in, and this was a bunch of dudes who are still in prison to this day, and I'm going back in the 90s. Most of them had bodies, numerous bodies. You know, armed robbery charges. These dudes are still locked up. Some of them are out. But they just so happen to like Dragon Ball Z. And that's how I got into Dragon Ball Z. So when I got up the road, I was still watching Dragon Ball Z. And of course, when you get to the little country satellite camp prisons, they don't all catch Dragon Ball Z. But once in a while, you wind up in a little private run facility where they ain't got nothing to do but fist fight and watch TV and gamble because there ain't nothing productive to do. And I started watching Dragon Ball Z. And it was during the Majin Buu arc. And I had to see what was going to happen. And my cellie, he didn't care about Dragon Ball Z. He thought it was cool. He'd tune in every once in a while, but that wasn't his thing. He watched Friends. That's right, Jennifer Aniston. He was into Friends. And one day, me and him just had a conflict of interest. I wanted to watch Dragon Ball Z, and he wanted to watch Jennifer Aniston. You know, I wanted to watch Goku, and he wanted to watch Jennifer Aniston. I couldn't stand that show, Friends. I actually hated it. Anyway, he loved it, and we had an agreement. But it just so happens the Friends dropped a special episode, and it was going to conflict with DBZ coming out. Now, DBZ runs on reruns, but so does Friends. And he asked me, man, just let this finish, and you could have the TV in the TV room, and they had other dudes in there. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm gonna watch Dragon Ball Z. And in the middle of them watching Friends, I went flip, 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 flip. I flipped it right to DBZ, and he said, man, Milk, what you doing, bro? I said, man, they call me Milk. I said, I'm putting on Dragon Ball Z. He said, man, I thought we was cool about me finishing watching Friends. And he went put it back on Friends. I'll put on Dragon Ball Z. And now next thing you know, we in each other's face and everybody's looking at us. Nobody else got involved. You know what I mean? And, you know, we go in our cell and we about to fight. And then, you know, cooler heads prevail. And he tells me, you know what, we cellies, man. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you know what, this is stupid. He said, this is stupid. But for a moment, we almost got into it. And that's what somebody I knew, my cellie. I was cool with this dude. So can you imagine if you mess with that television and you ain't cool with the person? Man, they will jig you up. Like I said, Jerry Springer, that was fight night. And when them dudes put Jerry Springer on, and I can't stand Jerry Springer, but I did not go in that television room when they were watching Jerry Springer. Because one thing was guaranteed to happen during the Jerry Springer episode. When them savages and them prostitutes and them crackheads started fighting on Jerry Springer, the inmates started fighting with them. They just randomly pick each other out. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, dang, This is stupid, you know? But these dudes like Jerry Springer. And guess what? Wasn't nobody gonna touch that television neither. You might not like BET raps. And if you white, you just gonna have to suck it up and you're gonna have to swallow that pill because you ain't gonna mess with them rap videos. Them dudes gonna watch them rap videos. You know what I mean? Now, I've been in dormitories where, you know, it was predominantly white, which is rare in southern prisons, but it happens occasionally where, you know, the whites will get deep up in the dorm and, you know, obviously they'll put on what they want. But a lot of the white dudes in the South are watching BET anyhow. A lot of them like it, not all of them. You know, you get them dudes from up north, they like, you know, the country music station. But there are certain things that you don't do in prison. And one thing I learned is you don't mess with that television. I seen dudes come out that TV room bleeding. You know what I mean? Because they got their face sliced up. Had to go to the hospital, get rushed to, you know, the Free World Hospital, get stitched up, come back in looking crazy, going back out with 2 scars across their face. All because they want to, you know, try to change the young and the restless. Man, you don't mess with no Victor Newman in prison. He got say so. Victor Newman been in the prison since the 70s. You think you gonna go change Victor Newman? Man, you smoking crack. You crazy. Anyway, I'm giving you a word of knowledge. You don't want to be in that pine box and smell that pine soil? Well, don't go to prison. And while you're at it, give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. Man, don't touch that TV. I got to get permission from my wife even now to watch TV. That's how crazy it is. I think I'm shell-shocked. My wife runs the TV. Her mama ran the TV when she was a kid. So I still don't mess with that TV remote. Man, God.